To understand black love, we have to be honest about the world around us, which tends to be, more often than not, compounded with so much anti-black hate. So black love, in comparison, sounds like a strange term. It sounds like something that should not be said. Just say love, or just say black. But if we do not articulate black and love within the same context, that's not going to be implied. I mean, let's think about all the hatred that our DNA has against it. Within our group, we have people who despise the direction that the hair grows out of our head, the texture of it. They despise the different skin tones. They despise the different facial traits of themselves, of one another. It's to the point that many despise or fear what their offspring could be because of anti-black hatred. And that DNA is not just how you look. It makes up your human capacity so that you could not exist if you did not exist in that form. You would not somehow be someone else. And out of all God's creation, elephants, lions, tigers, zebras, so on and so forth, we're the only living beings that have to somehow see our innate existence as anything but God's order, as anything but what God would install us to fulfill. Black love, as a black person, is the countering of the narrative that is against our DNA. Black love is also the opposite of black hate. Black hate, which consumes every part of this world. It's even in different sayings, such as, so-and-so is the black sheep of the family. And I guess that's supposed to be someone that sticks out, but in a bad way. Or the pot calling the kettle black. Supposedly, that's someone being a hypocrite. But why is our heritage, DNA, and race the thing that makes up some kind of a talking point that people can learn from of what not to do? And especially with its innate value. You don't see other groups being the sayings that everybody else looks down on. But with us, everything associated with us is used as a joke. So black love is countering that narrative. We are surrounded with so much hate in our group that it's in the ways we perceive our own beauty, in the ways we feel compared to other groups. We're having this big gender war thing that's been going on for a while. So if everything from the opposite sex to your children, whatever the different human existence within us would be, that hate permeates throughout it all. If we, which are consumed by this, it's like a sludge, it's a spiritual sludge that consumes us, and we're more used to that than anything else. There are more sayings, more terms, more wording that is hateful about us than there are terms of endearment for us. Because there are virtually no terms of endearment for us, how do we affirm our inward worth, our external worth? How do we project that on each other to show affection? The only terms of endearment that we mainly use were taken from slurs and just worded in a way that may seem less like the slur itself, but still sounds nearly identical to that slur. If you are so laden with hate that you have very few terms of endearment, and the only terms of endearment you have are taken from hateful terms, it's to say that you are shrouded in a culture that tells you, essentially, that you're not supposed to even exist. In the context of family, loving our DNA, romance, any category of ourselves, being pro-life, etc., black love is the preservation factor that keeps us sane, balanced. It's the counterculture that can keep us mentally secure. It's here so that we can know, just like any other group seems to know, that they matter and that love is meant to exist for them. We're not these robotic beings who are soulless. that can just take hate and pain and terror and trauma all the time and not have some counter narrative. We're not these beings that can somehow exist in conundrums and pain and yelling and bashing each other, cursing each other out all the time and not have us essentially lose our minds. Black love is here to keep our mind. And yes, it should be celebrated. It should be seen as moral. It should be seen as a code. It should be seen as a lifestyle. Because those generations that we had to live with hate and hate and hate, they compromised even our physical health. Not just because of stress disorders or mood disorders, but even if we change our hair texture using certain chemicals, we can obtain sicknesses. If we change our skin tone using certain chemicals, we can obtain these diseases that could cost us our lives. So we have to survive, don't we? Isn't that one of the laws of nature, is survival, self-preservation? This becomes a technique in order to fulfill what God would call us to do, which is to live, and live in association with Him.
Finally, brethren, whatsoever things are true, whatsoever things are honest, whatsoever things are just, whatsoever things are pure, whatsoever things are lovely, whatsoever things are of good report, if there be any virtue, and if there be any praise, think on these things. Philippians 4 verse 8.
Think about it. God is love.
Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God, and every one that loveth is born of God, and knoweth God. He that loveth not knoweth not God, for God is love. 1 John chapter 4 verses 7 through 8.
God calls us to love.
A new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another, as I have loved you, that ye also love one another. By this shall all men know that ye are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. John chapter 13 verses 34 through 35.
And yes, I believe as His biblical people, we are the most hated, but we are hated because...
If the world hate you, ye know that it hated me before it hated you. If ye were of the world would love his own, but because ye are not of the world, but I have chosen you out of the world, therefore the world hateth you. Remember the word that I said unto you, the servant is not greater than his Lord. If they have persecuted me, they will also persecute you. If they have kept my saying, they will keep yours also. But all these things will they do unto you for my name's sake, because they know not him that sent me. John 15 verses 18 through 21.
Knowing that the qualities God created Himself are hated, knowing that our group is so hated that there is no group even within us, let alone outside of us, that would epitomize us as worthy, is to say it's about God. This is a war between the flesh and the spirit.
For we wrestle not against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this world, against spiritual wickedness in high places. Ephesians 6 verse 12.
But we do not have to feed it and become casualties. We have to build that culture of love. Instead of seeing it as simping, sappy, lame, see it as a builder, healer, restorer. See it as the thing that we lack the most. And we can gain so much if we increase in that norm. It's important, if you're going to be alive, to live in a wholesome, sane, healthy, balanced state of mind. Especially if, when it comes to seeking measures that could help us, the services are rare, or they're expensive, or they're hard to articulate our specific experiences. Thus, constantly reminding yourselves of your worthlessness or you're constantly being devalued cannot be good for your mental health. I'm pretty sure that cannot be good for your intelligence levels. It's a trauma to hate or be hated to the extreme that we are. And the caricatures and the jokes and the attacks that are often wielded against us. It's a trauma to be constantly reminded of your failures. It's a trauma to not have refuge anywhere you go, whether it's internally or otherwise. It's the countering of the anti-us narrative, because we want to feed on healing. We want to feed on joy and peace and love and meaning and hope and whatever the ideal traits that everybody else gets to have, but that we lack and that we should have and we deserve to have. Because if we're going to be this hated in and outside of us, would it not make sense to somehow show our grit in saying, you know what, I don't believe this, and I am going to fuel my family, kindred, offspring, people with love? We got to take back all that was taken from us spiritually, because it's like our souls were stolen. It's like our generational peace was stolen. It should be part of our inheritance to take those things back. If you happen to be black, you're born as black, that means everything about you is what you were meant to be. You can only exist as a living being in the format that you are. Because this is who you are by DNA, an ant cannot be an elephant. Its perspective, its persuasion, its body, its appearance, among other qualities that make up its lived existence, are pertinent to it. And as a black person, we live so much outside of ourselves that we can't enjoy being who we innately are. Because I would think there are qualities, if we took the time to understand, examine, and appreciate those, that God himself would see as being fearfully and wonderfully made. That if we took the time to appreciate the qualities we have, we would realize they're really beautiful and really intriguing and really complex. So we should feed on our existence, so that we can be mentally, spiritually, and in all capacities preserved. Preserved not just in terms of timing, but preserved in terms of quality. Being able to qualitatively secure our sentience. Does any other group have so much self-hate as compared to us? I don't think they have as many hate groups against them as us, whether it's hate groups that just hate you simply because you were born. What is it, like between 700 to 900 hate groups in the United States? Most of them are tied to race. Most of them are against us. Part of what we should celebrate is that the qualities that make us us and distinct and unique are the qualities that make our love fascinating. Hate is more common, but it's not worded as black hate. The aftermath, the results, the behaviors, like the Bible says,
Ye shall know them by their fruits. Do men gather grapes of thorns, or figs of thistles? Even so every good tree bringeth forth good fruit, but a corrupt tree bringeth forth evil fruit. A good tree cannot bring forth evil fruit, neither can a corrupt tree bring forth good fruit. Every tree that bringeth not forth good fruit is hewn down, and cast into the fire. Wherefore by their fruits ye shall know them. Matthew chapter 7 verses 16 through 20.
you could see the fruit of the hate everywhere you go. So don't be ashamed of the term black love. It's the only thing that actually associates black with something ideal. I don't see how you could ever debate it as a term of endearment. The word love is a good thing, so don't get confused or upset now that it's mixed with the word black. It should be celebrated regardless. Celebrate the term because love is so difficult to find with us. contextually, black love is often used to describe couples. I think we should embody the term in totality. The love of how God designed us and our unique traits. The love of our families, the love of our history, the love of... I know that a lot of the things that make up our identity is seen as something to hate, but the Bible says,
"For who hath despised the day of small things? For they shall rejoice, and shall see the plummet in the hand of Zerubbabel with those 7. They are the eyes of the Lord, which run to and fro through the whole earth." Zechariah chapter 4 verse 10.
do not despise humble beginnings. Yes, our history is thorough, it's very deep, it's very scary to think of all the things that have occurred, but I think that if we could make a narrative around that to celebrate it, that becomes a very rich experience. If you were not the covenanted people, do you think you would still be here today? I don't know if dinosaurs ever existed, but apparently they went extinct and they're mightier than us. Think of all the might that was wielded against us. And it subverted us because it's such an anti-life existence to be anti-black life. And somehow we're still here. And, I study population data, and by the grace of God, not only are we still here, many of our countries will be experiencing what is called baby booms. So we're still here despite all of the chaos against us. We're here despite all of the things that could have otherwise made us extinct. Now that is something to love. Knowing that there is a texture of us that is somehow still resilient, tied to covenant, tied to God, proves on many different levels that God is in us. I believe we're coming into a time where love is going to be more relevant to us, where we're going to feed on black love. We're going to be happy to see black couples. And there's going to be an increase. And I've talked about marriage boom, family boom. I talked about the awakening in other dialogue. I believe there's going to be a time that you're going to feed on seeing all these different couples and families. You're going to enjoy it. You're going to celebrate it. It's going to resonate with you. There's a time of healing, forgiveness, and apologies, and all these things that could otherwise bring us into a place of healing. And the beauty of being black. Our story is not in vanity. Our story is not in the things that are beautiful. Our story is in the things that are not so beautiful. The things that are thorough and harsh, and somehow seeing the beauty within that, because it takes creativity, a certain level of mental fortitude. There's just something about knowing that you're not alone in this. It's not like one person had to deal with it. It's the entirety of us that are dealing with this. We're not strangers. We may make each other enemies, but biblically we're not strangers. We're covenant community. We are the children of God. It's time to love ourselves, love our image, love what God has called us to be. Because with love comes unity, with love comes support, with love comes community, with love comes healing, restoration, hope, and peace. There's many qualities that love can fulfill, and I'm starting to think that hate is mind control, among many other mind control tactics. And this is where I get into the conspiracy theories. Forces in the spiritual realm and in the physical realm, their goal is to destroy us. Like the Bible says, the goal has always been, from the time we were chosen to the time we were brought low due to our wickedness, but there was still a conspiracy against God's people.
For, lo, thine enemies make a tumult. And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, and let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. Psalm 83 chapter 2 verses 2 through 5.
It has been to cut them off from being a nation. And you can cut people off from being a nation by slowly disintegrating everything that makes them, them. If we love, we can begin to glue back that nation that has been cut off for so long. The Bible talks about this greater conspiracy against us. When we get to that era where it starts to overturn, you have no choice but to love each other, support each other. This larger, grand family. One race under God. One bloodline under God. No more is it going to be separated by whatever the many tribes are, whatever the many cultures are in this world. No more is it going to be separated by all the other categories of what we think is meant to separate us. No. You know the beauty of black love? It perseveres. That somehow, some way, God himself is going to bring it back into fruition. And I believe this love, like the Bible says, in the last days, God's going to make it so that...
And it shall come to pass afterward, that I will pour out my Spirit upon all flesh, and your sons and your daughters shall prophesy, your old men shall dream dreams, your young men shall see visions. And also upon the servants and upon the handmaids in those days will I pour out my Spirit. And I will shew wonders in the heavens and in the earth, blood, and fire, and pillars of smoke. The sun shall be turned into darkness, and the moon into blood, before the great and terrible day of the Lord come. And it shall come to pass, that whosoever shall call on the name of the Lord shall be delivered, for in Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, as the Lord hath said, and in the remnant whom the Lord shall call. Joel chapter 2 verses 28 through 32.
He says he's going to pursue us with all of his heart, and all of his might, and all of his soul.
Behold, I will gather them out of all countries, whither I have driven them in mine anger, and in my fury, and in great wrath, and I will bring them again unto this place, and I will cause them to dwell safely. And they shall be my people, and I will be their God. And I will give them one heart, and one way, that they may fear me forever, for the good of them, and of their children after them. And I will make an everlasting covenant with them, that I will not turn away from them, to do them good, but I will put my fear in their hearts, that they shall not depart from me. Yea, I will rejoice over them to do them good, and I will plant them in this land assuredly with my whole heart and with my whole soul. For thus saith the Lord, like as I have brought all this great evil upon this people, so will I bring upon them all the good that I have promised them. Jeremiah 32 verses 37 through 42.
We celebrate love, the love of black love, the love of the black family, the love of black unity. We celebrate love. Let us build back our nation with love, not being so cut off from the nation. But tying black love into marriage and the family is, we got to get rid of this battle of the sexes thing. Because there's way too much anti-blackness in the black gender war. It's not even really just about gender. Because I suppose there's only so much we can, understand or not about the opposite sex. I personally think we're just human, but hey, whatever. With us, it takes this nefarious overtone of anti-blackness. It's clearly about DNA. It's clearly about the fact that if you were to marry one of these people, you could create a black family with them. And the black family is not trending. It's not the most beautiful family structure in many people's minds. I would argue that the black family is the most hated family structure. In order to bring the black family back, it's going to take a lot of work. I believe that's going to take a lot of being honest. Let's just get into that whole conspiracy thing. I really just believe that's why it's part of the whole, let's cut them off from being a nation, cut off from each other, because being vulnerable and divided makes you easier to destroy. Divided, you fall. Unity has always been the way to survive and even thrive. The black family being hated, the opposite sex being hated, it all proves the same point. Not a people that have a bunch of families, not a people that have a bunch of couples and lovers, because for every couple is a future nuclear family. For every couple is a future testimony. Rather than having them all get along and all be happy, let's just continue to infight. I believe there are forces within us and outside of us who would want more and more of that chaos. But compare that, all the hate, to wherever there is land, wherever humans can occupy, there were families, there were black couples. Can you imagine that world? Yes, we got issues. Let's work on those issues. We've got problems. Let's actually work on those problems. But to deteriorate and completely destroy the family structure, as long as we're going to be here, as long as we're going to reproduce, and if people are still going to pair bond, even if it's not in a long-term capacity, but pair bonding enough to create offspring, give those offspring a family. Give those offspring a foundation. So we have to be pro-marriage and pro-family, so as to illustrate norms that can psychologically benefit our offspring, collectively enhance the way we see ourselves, which only later on incentivizes marriage in the first place. I'm not afraid to say that I love the black family, I love black couples, and that I love black love. And if that's a concept that does not make sense to you right now, it will with time. You will see the beauty of black love, especially in this new era that we're walking into. It's going to go from this anti-life existence to a celebration of life. Let's continue to feed on righteous love and ideal energy.
Let us increase in love, couples, romance, nuclear families, togetherness, and the rebuilding of our black collective. Black love is beautiful, because love is beautiful, and we must regain love after all this hatred.
Let's be pro-black families, pro-black love, pro-black unity, pro-black couples, and just heal. Well, that's all I have for today's discussion. My name is Gershly Karen Pyre, and I'm pro-marriage, pro-the nuclear family. Stay tuned for more.